That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. It is time to put your line in the sand. Now, this is going to be a discussion some of you are not going to like today. Some of you may even turn it off. Some of you may say, I don't want to hear it. Well, it's time that we hear it, and I know a lot of you have requested for years to have David J. Meyer as our guest on the Power Hour. He has a background in the occult. He lived in a family where superstition and occultism was everywhere. His paternal grandmother and great-grandmother were both practicing witches in the old Wiccan tradition. His story is a long one, it's a challenging one, and it's a painful one. But he joins us here today so that we can understand the dark side that we may never see, even though it may be going on next door. Pastor David J. Meyer, thank you so much for joining us in the Power Hour today.
Well, thank you, Joyce. It's a pleasure to be on with you, and I have great admiration for your work. You're doing a great work. I'm just glad to be on here.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll tell you, your followers are so thrilled you're on here, too. I mean to tell you, you've got so many people who read the Last Trumpet Ministries newsletter, and you can go to just today's guest, click on it, lasttrumpetministries.org. He's got every one of the newsletters archived there for you to read. You do have a lot of people that read your newsletter. In fact, how many people do you think probably either go to your website, read the newsletter, or get the newsletter on a monthly basis?
Approximately 2.2 million.
Whoa. That is incredible. That's wonderful. Well, obviously it's because you have some content there that they want to hear. But before we get into what you're all about, let's go back to what you were about when you were a child. I can't even conceive of being raised in a family of Wiccans or practicing witches. That to me is so far out of my perception of what goes on in this world. Tell me what that was like.
Okay, before I go into that, I want to mention one quick thing about our website. We do have, make sure that if you go to it, you go to .org, lasttrumpetministries.org, not .com. There are some witches. There's a coven of witches down in the Bahamas.
Really?
That have taken the same name, Last Trumpet Ministries, but they have .com, and it's all full of witchcraft material and just very unsavory things.
Whoa.
So they've done that as a diversion, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do hear from people all the time that are, letters of criticism and so forth, threatening letters, threatening phone calls, things like that, because of what we're saying and exposing the witchcraft. But anyway, back to your question, when I was quite young, I found myself attracted and drawn deeply into the occult because of my grandmother and on my father's side, and my great-grandmother. Everything was quite spooky all the time. It wasn't uncommon to have things move around by themselves and objects, and apparitions and things appearing. My grandmother was blind. She was a blind witch, and she made her money by reading palms with her fingers. Businessmen would come to her and ask her to read their palms and then also to cast spells, put the whammy, whatever, on in the hex. She could do hex signs with her hands. And they put the hex on other business people to try to crowd them out. And this was quite common. And she was, in one particular case, there were a couple of businessmen that came up, and she was paid, she was supposed to be paid for reading their palm, and they paid her with washers because they thought she's blind, which was really stupid because you can feel the hole in the middle of a washer. And she immediately did a hex sign on them, and they both fell down the stairs. She lived upstairs near a railroad station there, and one had a broken leg and the other had some broken ribs. So she was constantly. Here's another little thing. My great-grandfather lived out in the middle of a very spooky-looking woods called the Buckbee Woods up near Clintonville, Wisconsin. Well, anyway, when my great-grandmother died, my great-grandfather would lay down at night. He would light the candle would be lighted, or the lamp. He'd blow it out, and a few minutes later it would light by itself. And it kept doing that for a while, and then this was happening every night. then finally it stayed out, and then he would feel like fingers feeling all over his face, and there was nobody there. So some of his friends said, well, aren't you afraid of what's going on there? And he said, no, that's just Ma. You know, he figured it was her spirit. It was a demon.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the kind of thing, you know, and things appearing, light bulbs unscrewing by themselves, dropping to the floor, books sliding off shelves, mirrors dropping and breaking, you know, just that kind of stuff.
But that was normal to you. That was something that you didn't even question at the time?
Well, actually, I looked at it at the time as, you know, cosmic force. See, in witchcraft, most witches don't look at themselves as evil. There are some that do. And there are 6 levels of witchcraft in the old Wiccan tradition. The lower 3 and the upper 3. And the lower 3 levels do not believe, now no witches believe in Satan. Satanists believe in Satan, but not witches. Witches believe in the force, that there's two sides of the force. There's the good side and the bad side. There's white witchcraft, there's black witchcraft, that they have to be brought into balance through magic, through spells, through rituals, incantations, and so forth. And they look at themselves, witches are very egotistic. They look at themselves as great benefactors, that through their magic they can help people. Now with me, my area of expertise was astrology. And you cannot practice witchcraft without astrology. And I was very deeply into that, casting horoscopes and so forth. And a lot of spooky things happened with that. I got to the point where I could make predictions without even looking at the chart, which really is what turned me around, because that scared me. I thought I had control, and I didn't have control.
Okay, let me go back to astrology. For those of us who've never been involved in it and just kind of considered it, something that, you know, I don't want to deal with or I don't know anything about, what is astrology? What is it really to the witches? What is it to them, and what do they do with it?
Astrology is really... It's their time clock. They have the witches have what they call the circle of the year, and you may have witches listening right now to the program, and they generally get mad at me when I bring these things up. But anyway, the witches have the circle of the year. They have 8 Sabbats, 4 quarter Sabbats, 4 cross-quarter Sabbats. In other words, it's like if you took a pie and cut it in 8 pieces. Okay, and in fact, we have another Sabbath coming up this month, which is Yule, and that's on the 21st or 22nd of December. And Yule, of course, is the rebirth of the sun god. And then you go into, after the first of the year, you get into February 2nd, which is Imalk, and that means in the belly. And it's the first stirrings of the new spring in the womb of Mother Earth. And you go around the circle of the year like that. There are 8 of these. Of course, Halloween is one of them. They call it Samhain. It's spelled S-A-M-H-A-I-N. Looks like Samhain, but it's really pronounced Samhain. It's a Scotch Gaelic word. But anyway, they go around the circle of the year. Now, corresponding with the Earth cycle, and then you get into this Mother Earth concept here. You know, we all have a bountiful mother, an alma mater, right? the Mother Earth, and that you can get in later on. Remind me, we can touch on the Copenhagen thing and how that's involved in witchcraft.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so you've got the circle of the Earth. You've got the astral plane. Now that corresponds with what's outside. If you look straight up from the equator and then around, astronomers refer to it as right ascension and declination, you know, to find any spot in the universe. But what it is as the Earth turns, it turns through what they call the houses of the heavens, or the constellations in the sky. And the planets traverse through these constellations and form angles. They form the semi-sextile, sextile, squared, which is 90 degrees, trine, which is 120 degrees. So it goes by how far one planet is from the other and what sign it's in. And each one has certain characteristics if you're born under a certain sign. For an example, the reason people put candles on a birthday cake is it's a pagan custom.
Really?
At one time, only witches did that because it marks the point of where the sun was at the time you were born.